Welcome back. In this lecture, we will look at an important feature first uncovered via experiments that is going to lead us to a model that will be discussed few lectures from now. What is the feature? We are going to be looking at trends in separation energy of the last nucleon. So there are two kinds of nucleons, proton or the neutron. We imagine that the different protons and different neutrons are arranged in such a manner, something, one of them, that is amongst all the protons or amongst all the neutrons, something has the highest energy, and to remove this particular nucleon, the energy required is the minimum, right? So if you're going to be removing a more stable proton or a more stable neutron, the energy would required would be greater. So you are trying to remove the highest energy, the neutron or the proton, which has the highest energy within the nucleus. So that is called the separation energy. So here we indicate the separation energy for a neutron, right? Because mass is indicative of energies. So the separation energy for removal of one neutron is given by this formula. So what is that? So this is the mass which is reflective of energy. The atomic um, it has this particular Z, this particular A, right? So when you remove one of the neutron, A would decrease to A minus 1, but Z would remain the same, right? The atomic number does not change. So you would be left with a nucleus of this configuration and an isolated neutron, right? So this is like a energy of a reaction, and the reaction we are thinking about is removing one neutron. So this is the, in a way, reactant state. These are the products of that reaction. So this can equivalently uh, written in this manner, this in terms of binding energies, right? Or the overall binding energy of a nucleus of this particular configuration and the binding energy and in this particular configuration. Okay, so you can write it in this manner also. Uh, so what you see is the following. So as we plot across the separation energy uh, across the neutron number, what you see is that there is this kind of variation. There is a nucleus which has an even number of neutron. Here the separation energy is greater. If you have odd number of neutron, 55, 53, 51, 49, 47, all these energies are lesser compared to the energy required to remove a neutron from a nucleus that is having an odd number of neutron. Okay, so of course there are some variation. Okay, in the sense that we are not uh, discussing why this increases. Okay, so that's not the point, but all the main point here is to bring out the difference between a nucleus that has even number of neutron and odd number of neutron. That is the main point that is we are trying to communicate here. So just before we move on, to understand this formula, you write out the energy, binding energy uh, for this particular configuration and for this particular nuclear configuration. And when you explicitly write out and subtract why this formula is equal to this formula is equal to this will become clear. So you write that out. Okay. So moving on, we can write a similar formula for removal of a proton, right? So here you are removing a proton from a nucleus of this configuration. So when you remove a proton, you're not only decreasing the atomic weight, you're also decreasing the atomic number. So the separation energy of the last proton is given by this. Equivalently, this can be written in terms of binding energy. Again, you explicitly write out the binding energy formula and then subtract. You will see why this is the same as this formula. So what do you see for proton? You see the similar behavior in the sense that if the energy required to remove a proton from a nucleus that is having odd number of proton is always greater, 54, 52, 50, and um, so on. Maybe there is some, yeah, so there is some change here. Okay, so this is all the same. Um, okay, so there is some variation, but in general, what is the observation is that the energy required to remove a proton from a nucleus that is having even number of proton is greater, similar to this kind of an observation, right? So both these features is going to help us build a, a model. Okay, so we'll see, we are going to discuss two models. Uh, these features, that is, why is that a nucleus that has even number of neutron or even number of proton is more stable than a nucleus of odd number of protons and odd number of neutrons. Why is that? Okay, that feature has to be captured uh, in any model that describes a nucleus. So this is an important feature that has to be unraveled by any model that is proposed. Let's move on and let's look at the distribution of stable nuclides. So if you look at all the possible nucleides, okay, that is readily available and stable. So what you see is that most number of stable nucleus have this configuration. That is, they have um, even number of neutrons and even number of protons. Less of them have even number of protons and odd number of neutrons. That is, this is 55, this 165, and even fewer have odd number of protons and even number of neutrons. Okay, so the important observation is this is the most stable configuration, even Z and even N. So if you also look at many commonly earth abundant elements, let's say oxygen, oxygen um, weight percent amongst all the elements is about 48%. That has even number of protons and even number of neutrons, right? 8 neutrons and 8 protons. Likewise, silicon also has even distribution. This is iron even distribution, and so on. Okay, so the take home message is there is something about having even number of neutrons and even number of protons. So something that makes the nucleus more stable compared to having an odd number of neutron, an odd number of proton. So in the next lecture, we will collate together a bunch of observations that we have discussed over the last few lectures, because these experimental facts are important, because any model that you propose for a nucleus has to be capable of explaining crucial experimental features. So that will be collected and presented in the next lecture. Thank you.